Hi everyone, my name is Ariela. I'm an herbalist, a Jewish birth worker, and educator. And today I'm sharing with you one of my greatest passions, which is making teas for the Jewish months. And how I make those teas is by incorporating the Torah portions of the month, the holidays of the month, with the seasons, what's going on in the natural world, with my knowledge of Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, astrology, and with my own sense of how am I feeling in my body, in my mind and soul, and what's going on this month. So Shvat is a wonderful month for making tea because of the holiday of Tu Shvat. When we celebrate, it's like the new year of the trees. It is the new year of the trees, and we celebrate Earth and all of God's beautiful creations. So what a wonderful way to honor those plants. And there's actually a saying that I love, which is that every plant, every blade of grass has an angel associated with it, allowing that grass to grow. And I love that because it really tells us one of the most beautiful things in Judaism, which is everything on this planet has a purpose. Nothing is just here by coincidence. And knowing that even a blade of grass has a purpose helps us to approach plants and therefore animals, and even more so people, with as much respect and honor as we can, knowing that there's a reason that they're here and respecting and honoring them. So the tea for the month of Shvat is really one that's going to be nourishing for our nervous system and strengthening, giving us a little bit more koach, strength, as we embark on the change of season, really, from winter to spring. So the first herb in our tea is Nettles, which is a very popular herb nowadays. It's really wonderful for your blood, for your nervous system, has lots of minerals, very, very good to be drinking every day, really, because of its tonifying effect on many systems of the body. And why I chose Nettles is because on Tu Shvat we celebrate all of plant life. Not just the pretty flowers and the things that look nice, but we even celebrate things that are a little bit rougher, spikier. And some of you may know that nettles, when they're fresh, are very spiky. You would not just want to touch it with your hand, feel it. It would hurt. It would cause you to feel this burning sensation. However, once a person knows how to handle the nettles, either by boiling them or drying them, they are completely friendly and good for us. And what a beautiful piece of Torah for the month of Shvat, to recognize again that everything has a purpose. Even those spiky things have a nekuda tova, as we say, like a little bit of good. And so Nettles is a wonderful teacher in that medicine, remembering that everything has good, and Nettles has a whole lot of good. So I'm going to put a tablespoon of her into my French press here. I use this 1 cup French press and put about 1 tablespoon of each herb in her. So 1 tablespoon of these beautiful nettles. Thank you, Nettles. The next herb that I include in my Shvat blend is oat straw. And oat straw is wonderful for the nervous system. So if you feel anxiety, fear, nervousness, oat straw is one of those herbs you can include in your daily tea drinking ritual. And the reason I think she's so important during the month of Shvat is because the Jewish people are in a time of transition. And during times of transition, it's very important to nourish our nervous system, even if it's a good transition. I'm making Aliyah with my husband, God willing, and daughter in a couple weeks. And even though that's an amazing transition, I have to nourish myself every day to be strong and to be able to see clearly and feel clearly. So what's happening in Shvat? We are leaving Egypt. We're going from being slaves to free people. And yeah, it seems like, oh, that's so easy and so great, but actually the Jewish people really struggled with that. And they really needed leaders, they needed miracles. Even the miracles were not enough to calm their nervous system. And so oat straw is our plant ally and friend to help us calm the nervous system so that we can really make sure that when we're moving from one state of mind or being into another, that our nervous system is supported. So I'm just going to put a tablespoon of the oat straw into our handy dandy little French press here. The next herb, it's very beautiful. If you ever see it growing, it's just, you couldn't miss it. It's a stick. It's called horsetail, and it looks like bones. It even has kind of joints growing upwards. And there's a concept in herbalism called the law of similars. What does that mean? That means if a plant looks a certain way or grows in a certain environment, chances are that's the way the plant is going to help us. So guess what horsetail is good for? Our bones. So many nourishing minerals for our bones. Horsetail is great for people who suffer with any kind of bone issues, arthritis, pain, inflammation. You're gonna love horsetail. And one of the reasons I chose horsetail was because this month, not only does the word Shvat, one of the meanings, mean staff. And what do you think of when you think of a staff in Judaism? You think of Moses. You think of all the miracles that happened with his staff. And it's a symbol of leadership. And this is a time when the Jewish people really needed that leadership. And I like to think that horsetail not only helps us with our bones in a physical way, but it helps us with our bones in a spiritual way. Stand strong in our convictions and values. You know, so often doubt and weakness and fear can make us unsure of when to say yes and when to say no. And we find ourselves in the world of maybe and I should have and I could have and I would have. When you need to get something done, when you need to leave Egypt, when you need to do something in your life, you need to be strong in your bones, spiritually and physically. And thank God we have plant friends whose purpose is to help us with that. And that's the reason why horsetail is being included in our tea for the month of Shvat. Thank you, horsetail. Okay, so the next herb is a sweeter herb. I'm sure many of you are familiar with her. Her name's Fennel, one of the Rambam's favorite herbs, and a great digestive ally. So often when we suffer from anxiety, our digestive system takes a hit. And I don't know if you ever go to restaurants, sometimes at the end of the meal, they'll give you fennel. So fennel is for centuries being used for the digestive system. But she's also very sweet and moistening. And the body part for the month of Shvat is the esophagus. And the esophagus needs to be moist for it to allow the food to just slip on down into our stomach and out. And so fennel is a great moistener of all of our digestive system, but the first little tube, the esophagus. And what I love about this is that it so nicely connects to the story of this month, which is about leaving Egypt. And Egypt is Mitzrayim, and there's a relationship between the word for Mitzrayim and the esophagus, the narrow place. And that is, I think, also one of the ways we see how our physical body and our spiritual body are so connected. If we aren't moist inside, then spiritually we can be a little dry, a little bit rusty. And we see that with the Jewish people leaving Egypt. Who's God? Why? Where's God? What's God? You know, their spiritual sense wasn't very rich and moist. And one of the other beautiful connections here is that the month of Shvat is connected to Aquarius, water, and there's so much water imagery during the month of Shvat. We sing always around Tu B'Shvat, the song of the sea, which is thanking God. Thank you, Hashem, for splitting the sea and all the seas of the world. But what we're also thanking God for is the future things that are happening for us. And this is a big Torah for the month of Shvat, which is faith, emunah, that even though you're in a sea that's open and that's miraculous, not being afraid it's going to close in on you. Does that ever happen where something amazing is happening to you, and even though it's so incredible, you're still afraid that it's going to end or something's going to go wrong? I know that I can get caught up in that way of thinking. And what the lesson here is, that's faith. Faith is that you can be in an incredible state and trust. You can be in a difficult state and trust. And I love the idea of needing to be moist and water, almost like watery, to tap in to a space of faith and flow. You know, when I think of faith, I think of the ability to flow with things, to go with things. Where are they going to lead? Who knows? We can do the hard work and pray for what it is we want, but ultimately it's about going with the flow, going with the water, knowing that the waters will split at the right time and close at the right time. And so thank you, Fennel, for helping us moisten our own inner waters so that we are able to go with the flow of the physical waters in this world. Put some Fennel in our, if you like extra sweet, you can add more Fennel. Okay, we're down to the last herb for our Shvat tea, which is one of my favorite herbs. I love her so much. It's the Hawthorne Berry. This is probably the only herb that's, yeah, it is. It's the red herb here. So it's like these red little circles. Everything else was kind of green and minerally, but this one really has some character. It's circular. So Hawthorne is for the heart. She's for the heart. And again, we see that law of similars, the red. Red is often associated in herbalism with blood. And there are a few reasons I chose Hawthorne for an herb in this tea. One of them is about the letter of the month. The letter of the month is the tzadi, which is connected to the tzaddik, or a righteous person. So when you look at a tree, you see the tree has roots in the ground and grows up towards the heavens. And tzaddikim, righteous people, are often compared to trees, specifically like a date palm. But what's so beautiful about people who are in a space of pure holiness is that we say their roots are in the heavens. That's where they're getting nourished, and they grow downwards towards the earth. So I love that relationship between trees that grow up and people that can grow down. It's almost like they're kissing in the middle, and that's some ways bringing the heavens and earth together. And so the tzaddik is coming from a place of the heart. A righteous person is really living in a heart-centered space. And why do I say that? I say it because if we think about it in Western terms, acts of the heart, acts of kindness, that's a common phrase that we use. And in Judaism, we know that knowledge, like real knowledge of truth, real truth, is seated in the heart, seated right here. And we can look at that from a place of, for example, intuition, when you just know something that's in your heart. And we can also look at it from a place of learning. If we have time to learn Torah, we have then time to get closer to the divine. And then we can lead from a place of the heart. And that's definitely a lesson for the month of Shvat, for this time of year. It's such a time of transition. And sometimes when we're in times of transition, our minds kind of take over with all of these thoughts and fears. And again, we have to come back to that place of faith. And where does faith live? Faith isn't logical. Faith isn't like 1 + 1 is 2. Faith is beyond. It's beyond. And that's why if we're able to tap into it, it can be so strong and so nourishing for us. And it's what needs to be cultivated in a place of freedom. And that's where we're getting to in Shvat, a place of freedom. In a place of slavery, those muscles are not, they really don't need to be built, those spiritual muscles, because we're slaves. We know what's going to happen from day 1 to day 2 to day 3. But in a world of freedom, absolute freedom, there's so much more that could happen. And there's so much more faith that you really need to have, because day 1 isn't necessarily going to be like day 2 and day 3 and day 4. And what better time for all of this to be our story that is told than during the transition from winter to spring, which is literally like the sap rising in the tree. We're literally starting to grow and experience the life that has been buried under the snow. And who knows? This is just the beginning. So we don't know what will be in the summer, which fruits will develop and which won't. So it's really the earth teaching us a huge lesson as well. And there's no doubt that Judaism teaches that, we say it's a tree of life. And I believe that it's because we have so much to learn from the natural world about faith, about trust. And so I hope that this tea allows you to make space for meditating on all of the things that we've talked about. I recommend, if you drink it once at the beginning of the month, once at the middle, and once at the end, that's great. If you drink it every day, wow, that's amazing. There's no formula for this. If you just reflect on the questions without the tea, that's wonderful too. But I'm wishing you a beautiful Shvat, and that you may have time to nurture yourself during the transition, and that all of the seeds that you've planted that are under the snow, you see them begin to grow and flourish into whatever it is you're hoping for. So, Chodesh Tov.